Hey everybody, welcome back to Three Guys in a I'm traveling and I forgot my ball, but Sergeant Major Jill's got us. What's going on, Sergeant Major Jill? Should we call you Sergeant Major Jill?
You can call me that. I like that, okay. Keep it a little less formal. But I'm doing well. How about yourself, Tim?
I'm doing great. It's good to have you.
Well, thank you. I'm happy to be here with you all.
Thank you very much for joining us, Jill.
Yes.
So why don't we start this off? Just tell us a little bit about yourself and your career and what you currently do, and just let our audience know who you are, and we'll go from there.
All right, sounds good. So Jill Johnson's my name, and currently a sergeant major. Was promoted recently, and I'm in the United States Army. 19 years. I hit 20 in April. I started off. I started off in the reserves back in 2002 is when I enlisted, and then went off to basic training, all that stuff, went straight into Iraq. So I really didn't like being in the military and like being in the Army as much as I have. And so then after I pretty much finished my reserve contract, I went active duty in the active guard reserve program. And that's where I've been ever since. And currently in San Antonio is where I'm stationed, San Antonio, Texas, and I'm a Brigade Operations Sergeant Major.
So I have fond memories of Fort Sam Houston.
I bet you do.
Medical, not necessarily
Yep.
The fort. I mean, it was nice. It was nice. I mean, it was way better than Fort Leonard Wood, but the Riverwalk every weekend for like, I don't know, what was it, 10 weeks? That was awesome.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's a great place to be stationed. That's for sure. Haven't got a chance to explore as much as I would like to right now, because I'm concurrently doing my sergeant major course distance learning. So I have to do the full-time job and then my studies. So for the last year, I just went into phase 2. So I pretty much haven't had much of a life between work and school. So, but it's almost done.
And you're also
almost
making me feel super old. I mean, yeah, I am going to turn 40 this year, but you enlisted after me and you're a sergeant major, which I just remember as super old people. You don't look super old,
I know,
but that's how
it's
I
so
remember
weird.
them.
That's good. That's great. I do. I know, me too. And it's hard for me to think and like, this is where I'm at. Because it just seems like yesterday I was in, and then sometimes it seems like it's been a very long time. I do check in the mirror occasionally. There's a few grays, and I got a few wrinkles, and more than I did before. But yeah, it's like I turn actually 45 in November. So
Wow.
so if I still
Look
look
at
young,
You do
that's
not
what I
look
want.
45 at all.
That's great.
Wow.
Because this job, it takes a toll on you after a while. So if I can keep that young looking face, that's great.
So before we move on, and I let Paul or Jake take it away, I just need you to help me with one thing. Can you just tell me to get off the grass?
Get off my grass.
Oh gosh, the amount of
I
times we
know.
heard that. Oh man.
I know, it's so funny. And to think, like, every time I see a sergeant major, you guys are probably the same way. You go the opposite direction, because it's like you didn't know what they were going to call you out on, what gig you might have, and definitely, to get off my grass and all that. But yeah, it's a little different now. And even in my studies, there hasn't been much about get off my grass. It's a lot of more higher level stuff. But yeah, it's so funny. And it's funny to think about it. It's like I still am kind of in awe. I'm really just trying to relish the journey and the process, something I feel like I haven't really got to do throughout my military career. Because as you guys know, serving, it's like you get in and it's just boom, boom, boom. Everything happens so fast. And then before you know it, it's like, here I am. And I didn't even intend this to be a career for me, actually. So that it turned into that. And I've reached, the pinnacle of the enlisted ranks. It's to me, it's very, I feel very honored, very privileged. And you know, I don't want to screw it up. You know, it's like I want to be there and be able to take care of soldiers, and that's really the bottom line, and why I'm still doing this job, is take care of the troops. You know, all the other stuff is just the work, the staff work. It's but it's when you get to be with the soldiers, that's where it's at.
Awesome.
All right, I got a question about, so you're on your path there. So what's been one of the most challenging situations for you professionally in your career as you progress along? Because 20 years, like you say, goes by fast. You know, it's been 20 years since I graduated high school, and you know, just putting that number in place, you know, it goes by fast. But what was one of the most challenging parts for you in your journey, and what did you learn from it? What advice can you give others on that resilient piece?
Well, so just if anybody's trying to do the math and it may not add up, I enlisted when I was 25. So I went to college first. So I didn't go right out of high school. And so that's also why I'm like, you know, 45 and a sergeant major. So, you know, I've looked at it as 3 different parts so far. I had the beginning, which is I call my check the block. I did everything I wanted to do when I joined, because I joined right after, you know, 9/11 happened. That was the one thing that actually pushed me in, you know, that was the final straw, if you will, is for me to enlist, because I had already been thinking about it. But when that happened, it was like, it's on, I'm going in. And so, you know, getting to deploy, went to Iraq, and I was there in 2004 in the Wild Wild West, as we call it. I was in civil affairs at the time. So for me as a female, I was able to spend a lot of time outside, you know, outside the wire, you know, doing missions and stuff like that. And so if I kind of look in the beginning, you know, of my career, all the fun stuff, you know, getting to deploy, you know, that had its own challenges, as you guys know. You know, just going into a new environment. I was older, but I was young in my military career. I still didn't really know anything, and being out in harm's way, also having my leaders set me up to actually run missions while we were out there, to give me that experience. So, you know, you look at that beginning of my career, you know, I was just like so excited. I wanted to do everything. So it's really hard at that point. It's like you would just do things and move on. And that's why I feel like it's been very, you know, when I look back on that time, it's very fond memories. And I just dealt with everything. We got the training and you put the training to use. So it's hard for me to think back then, so many difficulties, just because it's also been 20 years. But I think, just as you were talking about the resilience and perseverance, I had really good leaders when I was a young soldier. So, you know, they instilled, you know, a lot of great hard work, discipline, the whole taking care of the soldiers, which has lasted me all of this time. And just, we were a tight unit. So, you know, we would talk about stuff. Especially in Iraq, you know, we had a few incidents. We had gotten blown up our second week there. And right away, after we got back and we all survived that, fortunately, we talked about it. And I don't know if that was common during that time. We're trying to do all that stuff now, but during that time, I don't think it was as common. But we got to all the group of guys that I was with. I was the only female on my team, and had a major who's a team leader, and then we had a staff sergeant who's our team sergeant. And then we varied with about 3 E5s, and then everybody else was specialists. There was like 3 more specialists. So we talked about it. And that really helped. That also instilled that piece in me that it's okay, that we need, you know, if something happens, we need to talk about it, because we need to be right so we can get back into the fight. So then the second part of my career is that mid part, right? And I feel like in some ways, this is where I was trying to figure out what else I was wanting to do, because I did everything I wanted to do. Deployed, had that experience. I did airborne school, all the fun stuff. I got to be around the troops, my buddies. But then all of a sudden I started moving up and they were all moving out. You know, they did their enlistment and went and left and went on to do great things, you know, in their civilian careers. and I still was in and moving up. And then you start getting into this staff role. And it was hard for me because it's like, I'm very active and I want to just do. So now I'm like in this staff work and having to balance that, you know, as I move up, the less and less do I get to do the fun stuff and all those things. So for me, that was kind of hard. And I think probably age at some point finally pushed me to that. I think it was between 38 and 40. I was really struggling with that piece. And then it was like, okay, I'm at a point where it's okay. I don't have to perform. I don't have to do the things I did when I was younger because it's not as expected of me because I have a different role now. And I would say the last 3 years, I've had a real mindset shift. And otherwise, I don't think I would have lasted because it's a, you know, the environment after a while, it can get to you if you don't have good outlets, if you don't have things that you can do to turn off. Yeah. And so in the last 3 years, I really have been working mindset. And so I don't want to like just keep going on and on but to answer your question with resiliency, I think all along the way, I've always been able to push through because I've always had that fighter instinct that I'm going to make it. I'm not going to quit. You know, I have strong faith. I'm a Christian. So, you know, Jesus Christ, I believe in, who's I felt helped me through this whole entire time of my career, keeping me safe, keeping me healthy, and just keeping my mind right. Because there's times where I'm just like, do I still want to do this anymore? Because it gets grueling. And but I started doing some mindset work and some other things, and it's been the most amazing thing. And I think even with the COVID situation, and why I'm sitting here with you guys today is because that mindset work that I did, some people I reached out to that would never have done probably in my past. And because of all these connections have led me to all these wonderful things. And it's just been great. So I hope that answers your question. And he's gone.
He got bored. He was like, F it, I'm out.
He's like, I'm out.
Hey, actually. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, I was actually just gonna say real quick, you know, originally we had you scheduled to talk about why specifically, you know, you listened to Three Guys in a Ball, but I think based on what you said about resiliency, we're going to shift that a little bit. And because, you know, you are for the troops and of the troops, right? You are actually, I mean, I've talked to several sergeant majors, but you're so far, based on our conversations, you're probably the most chill one I've ever seen or met, and you know, in a very, very good way. And I want to just ask, you know, if you had advice for the troops of any branch nowadays, Marine Corps, Navy, Army, or, you know, Air Force, or the new Space Force, and Coast Guard, forgot the Coast Guard,
Space Force.
Space Force. What would you say to the lower enlisted? And, you know, especially when they're having a tough time in basic training, especially when they're on deployment, what advice would you give them to get through the bad days?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And, you know, I've done that myself to reflect. And one thing I would say is, remember why you're doing this. You know, it might be harder for the younger soldier who is just coming in, doesn't have a whole lot of experience, but there's always a reason why we all joined. You know, it could be many different reasons, but there's a reason. And, you know, don't forget that, and let that still be your focus and goal. You know, that the reason why you joined is either because you wanted to get a skill that is going to suit you well later in life in the civilian world, or you just wanted to have an experience like none other. You need to join for college money, whatever it is, or just because you want to serve your country. Remember those reasons and let that be what helps to continue to keep you moving forward. You know, right now what I've seen in my time, you know, we do have a lot of young soldiers. I'm just kind of, sometimes I'm like shocked with just some of the things that, you know, I would have just been like, well, that, you know, that's just part of life and that sucks, and just, you know, move and drive on. Because I guess for me, I've had those skills to deal with stuff, and I just get through it, and it doesn't phase me after that. But not everybody has that. And so, you know, one of the things for me is important is that to make sure that, you know, one, all of our soldiers feel that they have a purpose and they're empowered. I don't care if they're a private or they're an NCO, you know, or even, you know, up in our ranks. You got to have a purpose, because if you don't have that, that doesn't, it doesn't give you that, you know, that driving force that you need to sustain. And everybody wants to be a part of something, and everyone's valuable in some way or fashion. And so that's one of the things. And also is that you're not alone. Like, if you're experiencing something, somebody else is probably experiencing it right now with you, especially if you're at basic training, or has experienced it. And, you know, just talk to somebody, let them know what's going on. You know, it doesn't have to be, it can just be your battle buddy, it could be NCO, you know, but talk to people, and then try to find some outlets. So like, if you're out of that controlled environment and you're somebody like myself, you need to find things that that keep you grounded, that keep you interested, that get your mind off work and things like that, and bring you other skills. So that's primarily what I would say.
Those are really good points. I know when I was enlisted, and then I saw the flip side, the grass is always greener on the other side, right? You're like, oh, I'm doing this job, but those guys have a cool job, but their job sucks too, right? And so you kind of spend your entire like enlisted time waiting to get out, to go to this, waiting to this, and that higher purpose, that purpose that you're called to serve. And I think most people that join the military have that purpose to serve something higher than themselves,
Mm-hmm.
right? Finding that and holding that dear is really important. When I went back to Iraq as a civilian contractor, I was a medic, so I would always stop in at the aid station, chat with the medics and everything, and see like, hey, what do you guys have going on? How can I be helpful? This is where I'm at. This is how I'm equipped. If there was a mass casualty incident, how we support each other. And there were mass casualty incidents, and I did come and support the military. Sometimes things were happening that I didn't even know about outside the wire, and they came and grabbed me and said, hey, you're not out today. Will you come over and help us triage and things like that? But the funny thing is, those Joes would always say like, oh man, I can't wait to get out and then I can be a contractor. I was like, dude, I know you have a lot of bull crap going on right now, but it's just different bull crap. Like right now, like if something happened to like your family, there's someone there to take care of them. If something happens to my family, nobody cares, you know? So I might be getting more money, but I have less support, and there's no career progression for me here, right? And so it's always good to remind the young soldiers, the grass is not always greener. There's always a different brand of BS, and to hold on to that purpose and really make a plan, make some goals that you can build upon.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. And you'll see that happen because people do think the grass is greener on the other side. They leave the military, and within a year or two, they're coming right back. I've seen a lot of that. And that's always been my focus personally, is that I just, no matter how hard it gets, just embrace it and push through, because you don't want to leave just on a whim, or, you know, you want it to be because it's the right decision, not just because you got mad at somebody or whatever. You don't want it to be rash, because then you might be right back, and you don't want to regret that. So I know personally, that's one of the things that, you know, to go along with what you're saying, is that if you want to leave, that's fine. but make sure you know why you want to leave. And it's not just because you think it's going to be easier or it's something, because like you said, everything has its challenges. And
You know, that's really good advice because I mean, well, I don't know how long the other guys have been out, but I got out in 2005. So it's been a long time, like 16 years. And you know what? I mean, we've gone into the private sector. Arguably, we're pretty successful. And yet we're still talking about transitioning. And we're still talking about brothers that we know that didn't transition very well. So getting out of the military is not always the answer. You should have some sort of a plan. What do you say, Paul?
I think it's a really great point, because I got out in 2009. I was actually one of the poor bastards that got stop lost because my contract ended in 2008, and the government said, "Hey, guess what? Since you're still in the war zone, you're going to serve this whole contract out," which was a whole year and a half. Which is perfectly fine. I transitioned out. I had, I'm not sure how Tim and Jacob did, but I had a really tough time transitioning when I got out. Took years actually, and in many ways it's still kind of transitioning. I'm still kind of doing it. And you're right, in all consideration, me, Tim, and Jake, despite all of our challenges, I think we're doing okay. I mean, overall, but that doesn't mean that I don't look at my uniform that I'm hanging up every now and then, or I don't go I don't have my dog tags that have hanging, or my retirement plaque. I call it a retirement plaque. I'm not knowing 20, but when I got out, my unit gave me a plaque. They're like, "Okay,
That's
thank
awesome.
you for serving." I'm like, "Okay,
Yeah.
cool." But I do look at that, and then I'd rather put up the stuff I have from the military more so than I have awards from the civilian world. I'm not saying it's more important. It's just, I loved your point about purpose, because I haven't found one equal to that since I've left. I don't know how Tim and Jacob feel, but that's for me.
Yeah, so hey, Jill, I want to ask this question about, you talked about mindset, because I mean, we had a whole episode on mindset and skill set. And, for us, we talked about how mindset needs to come first, because skill set is like your ability. But mindset, though, is what's going to get you through the hard times, because you might do great, but once you get hit in the face, where's your mindset at? Can you deal with that? Can you be resilient? Can you be tough? So can you talk a little bit about how you can self-regulate and things you do, and how you use your mindset to get you to the next level? Because I think that's something that we all and a lot of our listeners would appreciate and respect.
Yes, Jake. Yeah. And what you just said about the, mindset before the skill set. Absolutely. Because, I think anything you put your mind to that you want to do, you can do it. And that means you can learn those skills. But if you don't have your mind in the right place, then you're not going to be able to do that next level. So for me, so it's funny, Paul, I think you were the one that said that I was the most chillest sergeant major so far, and it's probably because those days I lived out my early NCO days, and I think that was part of one of the reasons I was thinking about getting out, because everything was starting to get to me, and I was, I didn't have a temper, but I had a temper, if that makes sense. Like, I would have to get pushed to that line. It wasn't like everything, but I would take, and it would be something so minor and probably so stupid, but my reaction to it would not match what that was, but it was because of everything else, and I would explode. And that happened to me when this was part of the, like, I got to do something different, and this was like about 3 years ago. And I came back with a big office room that had tons of cubicles, and the full-time staff, the other AGRs in there. There was 3 of us, and I think there was somebody else that was just happened to be in there. And I came in because I was so mad about something. There was a garbage can, it was a small one. I thought it was empty. I kicked it, and all this garbage goes flying out. And I was thinking, what an idiot. I was embarrassed. I picked everything up. I apologized to everyone. I'm just like, you know what? I cannot do this anymore. I either have to change myself, my thinking, everything, or I got to get out. And so I, that was part of what started it. And so we all can control how we react to a situation. We may not be able to control the situation or circumstances, but we can control our response to it. And so, and that's one of the things that had really connected with me early on LinkedIn. Her name is April Sprintz, former Air Force veteran, and she does a lot of mindset stuff. And she had invited me to one of her mindset challenges. And like, it was just mind blowing for me. And so I'm always looking at how to reframe a situation. You know, it may be, somebody may look at it this way, but if you flip the script, it's not so bad. You know, just stuff. And also, like I told you, my faith, you know, there's a time I just kind of like, you know, I wasn't very, you know, much into, you know, probably reading the Bible and praying as much as I should have. You know, I just kind of was trying to do my own thing. And once I kind of got myself right with God again, that's helped me tremendously as well. So, you know, some people may have faith, they don't, that's fine. That's just for me what has worked. And it really is so self-regulating, is that I just really stop. I mean, I used to cuss a lot too, and I don't like anymore. And it wasn't like part of my vernacular, it's part of just talking. I mean, I still say a word here or there. I mean, not perfect. And sometimes it's for, you know, you gotta do the exclamation. Right. But it's not like every single word in my sentence is the F word or something like that. And maybe you just hear and but.
We've all been there.
Exactly. So because of that, it's just, overall, I just feel so much better about everything, and it's made my focus better. And I went back to, again, what we were talking about, why I joined. That's why I said that's one of the things. And I actually told a group of soldiers this not too long ago, that came to my threshold of my door and just wanted to talk to me, which I think is also a normal thing, because I would have never just gone to a sergeant major's door and talked to them. But I want to be approachable, because like I said, I want to be able to still help soldiers, but you know, there's that healthy respect. I will get in your, you know, but if I have to, but I really rather not, you know, because that just is wasted energy. But that's what I told him. It's like, don't forget why. And for me, it always comes back down to the soldier. So it's been a work in progress, but I mean, just in the past 3 years, where I've seen myself and my growth to now has been tremendous. And I credit to that, a lot of mindset exercises, a lot of just reframing things and just controlling my actions to stuff. Does this really warrant me kicking a garbage can or slamming a door or, you know, throwing something? No, it doesn't. You know, it's just this, okay, you know, take a deep breath and then just address it for what it is.
You know, I love what you said, because we've all been there, especially when we get out. There's a certain frustration to getting out and not having a clear path, to not having clear direction given to you, having to figure it out. And often we take ourselves way too seriously. Mm-hmm. And that leads to frustration and stuff. I know part of my big transition into civilian life was like, dude, you need to chill out. You need to laugh at yourself. You need to let others laugh at you, and you need to not care about most of the stuff. And you know, literally, I would say, I haven't been shot at. It was awesome.
Exactly.
It was a good freaking day. And nothing that happened to me today, short of getting shot at, could actually make me have a bad day. And that's the type of mindset I try to bring forward. So I really love that you said that. And you know, Paul, I think probably like our next episode without a guest, I know we have a ton of them stacked up, or maybe we invite Jill back. I don't know. Maybe everybody that's a guest gets 2 appearances. Who knows?
That's a great idea.
Saying that all the time. But why don't we talk about how to discover your purpose in, you know, as you're transitioning into the civilian world? Paul, you said you haven't really found yours. I have definitely found mine. Jake has kind of reverted back to being a grade school student, which is great. That's probably his purpose as a Marine anyway. He chewed crayons. So, we could talk about how to kind of find that.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so
Hey,
funny.
what you don't know, you don't know.
That's right. That's very profound.
Hey, I do want to. Hey,
Uh,
Joe, I want to ask one question though while we're here before we kick. So, give a shout out to someone out there who made a huge impact in your life. Ready, go.
All right, hands down, has to be First Sergeant retired Bill Smith. He was the guy that took me under his wing when it was funny. He was mechanized infantry, had gotten out and came back in as well for after 9/11, and he came back in civil affairs, and that's what I was joining. And we were in processing the same day, and that's where I first met him. And I guess I made such an impression on him after my training and everything. And when we were getting mobilized to go to Iraq, he chose me to be on his civil affairs team because they had identified the leaders and the NCOs, and then they were like picking teams. And from that moment on, he took me under his wing. He made me tactically proficient. He's the one that told me bottom line, how to take care of soldiers, take care of your troops. They'll take care of you. They'll accomplish the mission. He still lives in my hometown, and hopefully in a couple weeks when I go back on leave, I'll be able to see him. I usually see him every time I go home. So definitely him. He's the one I think that really set my my military career on the trajectory that it is. So
That's awesome.
Jake,
out of
did you just
curiosity.
turn this into the Kindness Games episode?
Dude, hey,
Hey,
that's
Go,
what it's all
Jake,
about.
go. Do your shout out.
That's what it's all about. For me,
Yeah, go.
no, I don't have one right now. I'm dealing with kids barking and kids dogs barking and kids screaming. So
Dude, I got him on tap.
I'm focusing on
Right.
Jill right now.
Hey, Jill, it was really great having you on. And you have a really cool story. But I really love your thoughts, right? Because, from my experience, I don't really remember sergeant majors as thoughtful people, but I never really knew them when I was out of uniform either. So I think this could actually go a long way with a large part of our audience. So I appreciate you coming on.
yeah. Well,
Thank you
I
very much,
appreciate you
Jill.
I appreciate you guys having me and inviting me.
Yeah. One last question though. Did you meet Paul in a PetSmart buying cat balls? Because that's what I envision Paul doing.
Oh
my God.
No, I don't have a cat.
Good.
I don't
All right,
really-
3 guys with a ball. We're out.